Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the ecologiQ December 2024 Innovation Showcase. Thanks for jumping on board. I can see our virtual audiences piling in through the front doors. My name's Doy Lee. I'm the industry manager with ecologiQ, and along for today's event is my co-host, Lily Rose Palmer, who's our senior industry advisor. Whilst you're all jumping on board, I do want to acknowledge, although we're meeting virtually, that we still meet on traditional lands. So to that end, I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and any Aboriginal or First Nations people we might have with us on today's showcase. I mean, for me, we're here talking about the circular economy, being sustainable, utilizing our resources. But what I really love from our traditional owners is that really it is about just caring for country, which is something that our traditional owners have done for many, many thousands of years, well before we called it the circular economy or anything like that. So perhaps we can take some wisdom from their wisdom as well, and we acknowledge that as part of today's event. So. Just very quickly, I assume if you found your way here, you know who ecologiQ are, but if not, it's a Victorian Government initiative to administer the Recycle First policy, which has been kicking around since 2020, in fact. And what it's all about is diverting not just waste from landfill, but actually utilizing our resources. And with the construction boom here in Victoria, as part of the road, rail, tunneling, and even health and new hospitals and all those other builds, we're seeing a big opportunity there to really look at our waste streams and use them as a resource and keep them out of landfill, keep them in use, recycle them, but use them at the highest order. And some of the businesses that will be presenting here today are going to be taking you through some of the innovative products that they've come up by using this principle. So the recycle first policy, very quickly. So here in Victoria, if you're bidding or there's a road or rail or tunneling project that's being delivered by the state, they will have the recycle first policy applied to that project. And what that means is that during procurement, they need to come up and demonstrate how they're going to use recycled materials as the highest priority and in the best possible way in terms of carbon and sustainability as well. So that's what we talk about when we say optimize use of recycled materials. And really importantly, we ask them to report on the material and the volumes and the quantities of materials used. So I think from that we've seen quite a considerable impact. Up to apologies. I think it says 2.5 million tons of recycled materials there, but I actually think that's now sitting at 4.9 million, which, if I'm correct, might be 2 mcg's worth, but don't quote me on that, worth of recycled materials being used by our state projects. There's over 3.4 million tons of material being committed through the plans and through the procurement process. And what we're seeing is a double-fold adoption of the use of recycled materials in transport construction by projects that have the recycle first policy applied, which is just, a step in the right direction when we talk about shifting the dial and moving towards that circular economy. One thing I want to talk about quickly is ecologiQ provides a lot of, it's basically a free resource and service to any of you that have found your way to this webinar today, but also to industry. And one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest bits of work that we've published recently, a few weeks ago, we had our Greener Infrastructure Week and we launched our Suppliers Guide to Recycle First. So this is basically a handbook to sort of talk you through what is the Victorian infrastructure opportunities. You can see there's a map of some of the projects and how it all works. I call it a bit of a handbook to demystify the procurement processes, some of the challenges that suppliers often face when it comes to bringing new products into the market in the sector, some of the standards and specifications and asset owners that you'll need to work through, how these projects are awarded. So because we get a lot of these questions from businesses saying, hey, we want to do business with these projects, how do we get involved? So this handbook is your first step. It's available on our Knowledge Hub, which you can just send us a request to join our Knowledge Hub at ecologiq@roadprojects.vic.gov.au, or you can actually just scan the QR code here right now and get it, download a copy of that suppliers guide. So I really encourage, if you're a business or an organization just looking to considering doing work in the sector and supplying goods and services to under the Recycle First policy, have a look at the guide, because I do think it's a really tremendous resource, and the team have put a lot of work into publishing it. So yeah, make the most of it. Now today we've been running a showcase for a while, so the aim of this is really to give our industry partners a platform to tell us all about their latest and greatest inventions and innovations. But along for the ride, we've assembled a couple of experts, which we've put on a panel to help us provide some feedback to those organizations. So I have here, and probably I'll just go in that order, Stephen Howe, Director Engineering Solutions and Innovation, the level crossing removal projects. Stephen, did you want to say hello to the audience?
Oh, good morning. Thanks, Joy. This is my second one of these sessions being on the expert panel. I always get uncomfortable being called part of the expert panel, but thank you for pumping our tyres up. Look, it's really important in level crossings that we keep changing the dial on sustainable materials. We certainly have been encouraging that with our alliance partners, and they have a lot of imperative to go out and find and implement and copy previously implemented sustainable solutions. So it's definitely part of our business as usual to do this kind of thing and encourage this kind of thing. So yeah, always keen to see new players coming in with always looking for game changer stuff. Whether you a new product, a new technique, yeah, it's very important to our DNA at level crossing. So happy to be involved.
Wonderful. Thanks, Stephen. And again, really great to hear that you heard it there. Innovation and adopting these materials and really just making it business as usual is standard practice for the level crossing removal project. So thank you for sharing that. Anne Morgan Paler, Urban Design Manager with North East Link Projects. Anne, did you want to say
Yeah,
hello?
thank you very much. Yeah, I look after urban design for Northeast Link, and in urban design, we get involved in everything from bridges, colours, to noise walls, to landscape, to drainage and water sensitive urban design. So we're involved in really many aspects of the project, working with engineers all the time to try and actually captivate innovation. Certainly we're using recycled plastic on our project, and there's lots of opportunities for these recycled materials, and working with these materials to get a really great urban design outcome. So it's really exciting, and I think really important that we just keep doing this. We're certainly talking to our alliances all the time about that. Minimizing impacts and recycling material is really key on our project. Yeah, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Anne. Thanks for joining us. And last but not least, we have Ben Matters, Senior Manager Technical Services with Major Road Projects Victoria. Ben.
Yep, hi, that's me. Thanks for the introduction. This is my first go around on one of these panels. But a lot of the work I do in the roads program is looking at existing standards and guidelines and looking for opportunities for improvements. And I guess that's in how we use our existing products, but also incorporating new products and trying to not just find things that are imitations of an existing product, but understand that new products have new features and can be improvements on some of the existing things that we use. So looking forward to today.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ben. So I won't delay any further. I'll just go through housekeeping before we kick off with the main event. We'll have three main presentations today. First one will be from Scott Colbert from Revolve Group. He'll talk you through TDS 400, a new a drainage product using recycled tyres. We'll have Paul, apologies if I mispronounced it, is it Shutteris from SaveBOARD. He'll be talking about the SaveBOARD product, which is actually a fun fact I learned, hope not stealing your thunder here, Paul, but the greatest user of our red cycle plastic stockpiles at the moment. So everyone's very worried about plastics. SaveBOARD are here with a solution. And Rachel Roberts from Paintback. So Paintback is the industry's paint collection scheme, and they've developed a great new product using recycled paint. It's pretty straightforward. We'll try to keep each presentation to about 20 minutes, 10 minutes for our presenters to pitch, and then 10 minutes to field Q&As from the panel. I highly encourage you in the audience, if you have any questions, to put it in the chat. So just make sure you address it to the presenter that you're asking the question, so that they can go through and answer those questions live in the chat box on Zoom. And lastly, Lily Rose Palmer will run our Where Are They Now section, because we've been running the showcase for about 3 4 years now, and there's been a number of businesses that have come and presented and launched their products and things like that on the showcase. And I'm looking forward to hearing from Jackson Ellis from Cacti Conserve, a social enterprise making all sorts of safety products from recycled materials. And I think Jackson actually debuted on our showcase over 18 months ago. So I'm really keen to catch up with Jackson as well. So again, the Q&A function and the chat function, if any questions pop in the chat, just make sure you address it to the presenter and people can jump in there and answer those along the way. Now, without further delay, Scott Colbert from Revolve Group. Over to you, Scott. You want to hop on and let me know when you want me to jump to the next slide.
Hello. Thanks, Joy, and thanks for, pardon me, having us along today. Next slide, please, mate. Yeah, I'll just briefly give you an overview of Revolve Group. So our purpose is to really contribute to building sustainable infrastructure through providing low carbon sustainable solutions. So to give you a flavour, we've got a few products in the range. One's Rapid Route, which is a concrete-free driven pile system, no heavy plant, no concrete, high capacities for building bridges and other assets. Technocrete, it's an alternative to post-mix and site-poured concrete made from recycled vegetable oils, rapid setting, high performance, high mechanical strength product for footings. And we have a composite railway sleeper used obviously in the rail environment, manufactured from recycled plastics. And our drainage system, MDS, modular drainage system, MDS. So the MDS system is really addresses a few things. One, it helps to combat climate change and extreme weather. It helps deal with end-of-life tyres, and it also helps provide more resilience of our infrastructure by way of capacity, increasing the capacity, and also providing longer term reliability of road and rail networks, and also optimising maintenance. So what is it? It's a sustainable, tough and durable drainage solution. It's made from 100% recycled tyres, and it's encapsulated or bonded together with a polyurethane resin. It's quite, as you can see, I'm holding a small sample here. It's really quite sturdy. Looks like a block of licorice, if you like. Now it's a very permeable structure that has really high mechanical attributes and compressive strength. Yeah, play the video. So what it does is it enables a path of least resistance to be created. And so the water and your silts and hydraulic pressure persistently and passively flows through the product. So you can see with that demo there that open void structure really allows the water to spread further and reduces the velocity. One of the big benefits of this system is you don't get any build-up of silts. So in simple terms, what we're doing with our system is we're moving water away from where you don't want it to where you do want it. And it helps deal with some of the issues that we have with conventional drainage systems, where pipes can be susceptible to clogging and deterioration. Sometimes they're unable to cope with moving the water away quick enough, and there's high maintenance costs. And MDS drainage solution deals with all these particular issues. Next slide, please. It's a integrated and whole system approach to water management, and it's, I guess, part of your drainage toolkit. It doesn't solve everything, but it certainly has its place. And there are a number of options that it comes in. There's a panel option, and then you can see the sizes that it comes in and the various widths. And then we also have a stacker and a trough system. And depending on the location, design, capacities, etc., we may use 1, 2, or 3 stackers with a trough to deal with a particular scenario. Next slide, please, mate. Okay, so let's just talk about some of the applications. So in the main, it's for our rail and road surface and subsurface drainage. It's a great alternative to perforated pipe, filter stones and concrete channels, road and trackside, within the track environment itself and also the track bed. It can be used as an interface to link up with existing drainage systems. It can be used to remediate failed drainage systems where you don't need to actually rip out and replace an existing drainage system. It can go in there and do the job of the failed drainage system. The silt control to attenuate and mitigate rising water, and also to deal with wet beds. In the images you see there, that one's on the top, that's an road environment using the stacker and trough system. And the bottom image is a rail application showing the panel system where it's been installed sort of tip end next to each other along the side of the track. Next slide. Also can be used around assets and structures. You know, examples of this are you know, bridge abutments, retaining walls, around tunnels and portals. You can see a picture top left there where it's used on the back of a retaining wall. That's a legato brick there. Can be used in earthworks and land boundaries as interception drainage to slow down the flow of water, and also around the crest and cuttings and ditches, and also in land management to maximise the use of space, and also has been widely used in sporting fields and leisure and recreation. Moving along, Doi. From a technical perspective, look, it's a tried, tested, proven product, and we have the data to substantiate the performance of the product. And I'm not intending to go through this today, but probably a few key takeaways is that it's been engineered to maximise the water infiltration. So the porosity of that product has 45% porosity. So that's the voids that creates the water inflow. The material provides long-term durability and resistance to the environmental elements and chemicals, performs well in high, low temperatures, UV resistant. From an environmental perspective, it's sound. There's no microplastics. It's engineered to withstand loading conditions in road and rail, and designed to accommodate you know, minor movements in the ground. So all that data is there to support the performance of the product. Next slide, please. Quickly, in relation to drainage design, probably the key point here is, without looking at the table specifically, is that we have the ability to provide hydraulic modelling to support drainage engineers and do comparisons to filter drains and other pipe arrangements or conventional systems that are used, and provide guidance and comparisons against you know, pipe diameters that may be used and water capacities, and from a constructability perspective, you know, trench widths and depths that are required to suit the system. The benefits of the system from an installation perspective, it's significantly quicker. From the excavation perspective, the widths are at least 25% narrower using standard buckets, and the depths are quite a bit shallower, as as well, as you can see in the table there. From a safety perspective, in doing the trench works and the construction, but also it reduces potential hazards posed by standing water and flooding. Embodied carbon savings, so per kilometre of trenching required, we're saving at least 80 tonnes of filter stone or ballast that doesn't need to be excavated, disturbed and then replaced. And then there's the corresponding carbon saving that goes with that, just from optimising the trenches alone. There's no concrete, you're reducing your heavy plant that's required, and you're also reducing your logistics required. It's a lot lighter weight product to handle and use. From a sustainability perspective, every kilometre of MDS utilises 9,250 tyres that typically go into end-of-life disposal. The MDS itself is recyclable, so in essence it's 100% circular product, and it'll help drive your sustainability goals and net zero targets. Further benefits, it's a versatile and adaptable drainage solution that'll integrate efficiently into existing or to new drainage networks, quick and easy to install with less disruptions to track or road, and it'll increase your productivity from an installation perspective. From a maintenance perspective, the efficiency and durability reduces the frequency and scope of your maintenance and reduces your maintenance costs. Highly durable, design life 75 years, and this will increase asset resilience and your asset life. From a whole of life cost perspective, it's a more cost-effective alternative than conventional means, and there are some capital savings as well, and it'll help de-risk your drainage projects. This fine, I'll just touch on two quick case studies, one in rail and one in road. Now, these are both in the UK. It's a UK product that's been developed there and been widely used in the UK, and approved and certified for use in the rail environment by Network Rail. This project at Tuffley was back in 2019 was to provide an interface between the ballast shoulder and the 6-foot drainage system to open up the ballast and release the water away from the track, which was causing constant wet bed and flooding issues of the track. So our drainage system was used here, and we're able to install it without having to remove the failed drainage system. The massive benefit from this particular project was the saving in time. So the contractor that did the works forecast that using concrete pipe, it would have taken them 33 shifts for the 650 metres, and they were able to reduce it to 7 shifts, which they equated to a saving of around $2 million saving from an installation perspective.
Sorry, Scott, we're just about at time, so
Sure,
I'll jump to the next case study,
Yep.
but I might get
Next
the
one.
panelists to.
Yep, this is a recent project done with the Highways Agency in the UK, really to I guess test the product in some extreme conditions, and a once in 1,000 year storm event where 11,000 litres of water was flooded in the space of about 20 minutes, and the product held up incredibly well, demonstrating the durability and resilience to mitigate those flood risks in that road environment. So we might leave it at that, Doy.
Yes. I want to give the panelists ample time to ask
Sure.
questions as well. So
Yeah, far away.
I think Stephen, you first came up the rank.
Yeah, look, so many questions, Scott. It looks very promising. How can you prove it doesn't silt up and need flushing out? I mean, and also, how do you stop plant roots getting in there? And, plants love to go where the water goes. And have you any issues with vegetation ingress?
Yeah, sure. So from the silting up perspective, the polyurethane that's used to bond or encapsulate the product ensures that the silts don't clog in the voids in the structure. And from, I guess, the vegetation perspective, that's an interesting question. I don't believe we've had any issues with that in the past. We can use matting like you'd typically use to manage, I guess, filtration, and when you're doing trenching works to help deal with that as well.
Thanks for that. I might give the other panelists a bit of space to ask something. I probably had about 10 questions, but
You can always take
respectful
this
of time.
offline as well. So
yeah, happy to answer them offline, Steve.
Yeah, I was really interested. I had the same question about flushing out because it reminded me very much of open graded asphalt in that, and that is an issue we have when we use it to reduce noise attenuation. But does it also passively irrigate? Because I'm assuming that the water, is moving into the soil, which is
Yes.
a really great concept in water sensitive urban design, and something that we've been really trying to work hard with engineers on our projects, rather than just running spoon drains that run everything away from planting beds. And probably Stephen's concern, obviously roots are a problem, but I imagine it is quite flexible in one way or another.
It is. Yep. It is flexible. And is specific to the question.
So it's letting water out to the surrounding
area. It
so,
certainly does. Yeah.
Yes.
The porosity of the product enables that, but it's very much a constant passive
irrigation. Yeah.
Water flow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we'd be very interested in trialing that, because so often, particularly on batters, where traditionally spoon drains would be put, we're often having discussions with the road designers, about removing spoon drains to enable passive irrigation of landscape. And often the concern is, if we are close to an abutment or a retaining wall, or, obviously potential effects by water on those elements, is something that we have to manage. So, presumably by evenly letting the water out along a greater distance, you don't run into that sort of problem. Would that be true?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to take that offline, Anne.
And I think that's really interesting, because once we put spoon drains everywhere too, if our batters are a certain height, we also need to put protection rails for our maintenance people. So the cost of adding spoon drains and maintenance rails, it just adds more and more stuff to the road, additional materials. So if it doesn't need constantly checking, because spoon drains need to be cleaned out, then we start getting all these other advantages as well. So I just have
that's definitely one of the big advantages, and I'm probably reluctant to say it, but I will. It doesn't actually need flushing
right.
out,
okay.
per se. It actually self cleans if you like, but I think generally there's been an acceptance that with drainage, you need to flush them out because of that clogging and silt build up over time, but it's actually not required. But I think it's something that it's like, maintenance likes to do, but it's unnecessary.
Yeah, well, that'd be fantastic. I just have one question on the first product you talked about with the piling.
Yep.
Can I just clarify? Did you say that you don't need, heavy big cranes and things?
Correct. No heavy plant at all. Small hand tools.
Right, because this is another problem we come across a lot, is when we're trying to save existing vegetation. Often that's really difficult because we have to get a crane pad in there and so forth, and just the construction methodology actually means the vegetation might need removing. So that sort of product could be interesting on that.
Yeah, it's low impact, non-invasive. Yep.
Interested to talk some more with you. That's
Thanks,
great. Yep.
I recognise we're probably limited on time, but I'd just throw out something quickly.
Fire away.
Echoing what Anne said around this, reminding me of open graded asphalt, and I guess we know a little bit about how that performs, but also reminded me of free draining pavement, where we use the kind of the geometry or the porosity of a material to help act as subsurface drainage. Has that been considered? Does this product? I note you often have conversions to a piped system as a way to let water out. Has this been considered as more of a daylighted edge or a free draining pavement system? And probably the other bit, slightly off topic, to that first one is, if this is so great and you've certainly sold it well, I think it seems like a good material. Is there a certain application that you think would be best for us to really understand the benefits here? Would you be saying, hey, you've got a rural road or an urban environment or near a structure or something? And what would be the obstacle that you see to getting that used now? Is it a product specification issue? Is it a performance problem? Is it, why haven't we already been using this? Is probably my question.
Yeah, well, I guess probably to answer it, it's only new and we're only just launching it to the market now. It's been widely used in the UK road and rail environment to date, and we're only just launching the product now in Australia. So I guess hence that's where we are. I guess probably the only limitation is really getting local acceptance of the product, and trialing it and proving its performance locally. But the applications are wide. I don't see that everything you discussed there. I don't see that there's been any sort of limitations at all, Ben.
I'd just suggest some comparison with some of the technical documentation like the Austroads guides to pavement design and subsurface drainage, and just seeing if you tick all those boxes, it should be pretty easy to pick up. Or if there's something that doesn't quite fit the paradigm we're looking for, would be interested in discussing how we can either explain that it's still fit for purpose or overcome those limitations. Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm happy to take that up with you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ben. And thank you, Scott. It sounds like you've certainly got the audience and our panelists intrigued. So, Scott, there's a few questions for you, I think, in the Q&A function. You want to hop in and have it and answer that from the audience. But
thanks, mate.
Not a problem. And we'll take the rest of that offline. Now, I now invite to the virtual stage Paul to talk to us about SaveBOARD. Paul, over to you.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. Those who don't know, we are SaveBOARD. We're an Australian, New Zealand-owned company. I'm a Kiwi, but currently sitting in Sydney at our Warragamba facility. Next slide, probably is easiest.
Yeah, I know you have quite a few slides, Paul, so just let me know if you want me to.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go through them pretty quick. So, look, our business is modelled on a circular economy, so we're all around planet, performance, and price. So we know we have to be competitive in the marketplace. Next slide. And the key part of that is that, we take end-of-life packaging from post-consumer and post-industrial. We make stuff, we take it, we have a free take back scheme for all our end of life or offcuts. Everything from hoardings to pop-ups. We did the FIFA museum at the World Cup last year. It's a key part of our business model and why clients use us. Next slide. One of the key parts of it, which we offer to our clients, is that we take their soft plastics. These are sort of common construction soft plastics a lot of our clients sort of accumulate. And as part of a circular solution, we take their soft plastics, they use our products, and it creates that loop that's essential to sort of pull through demand of finished products. And we provide a tangible circular solution for them. So next slide. So we've got about 7 products, and we almost cover the full spectrum from everything from an external bracing element.
Sorry.
Going the wrong way.
Yep. Apologies.
So we have external bracing elements. So that's a sheet. A lot of common products might be plywood or OSB. We're doing a roofing substrate for like warm roofs. We do 2 internal products, and a paper face and exposed, a ceiling tile, which is for commercial applications. We have our multi-use product, which is a big seller in the construction industry, is hoardings, protection, warehousing, industrial. And then we have a joinery grade product, which is focused on that kitchen, commercial, retail fit out market. So next slide. So generic properties, this is actually in the AFL Gathering Lounge in Adelaide, I think. It's high performance bracing, impact resistance. It's material group 3, which is the same as plywood and OSB and MDF. You can use it in some wet areas. It's made from recycled packaging waste, so when there is no glues or adhesives, it's literally food grade or commercial grade plastics that go into it. 99% recycled content and 100% circular in design. Next slide. So this is a quick, exposed internal lining. It's pre-finished. You literally just put it up with a panel pins or a brad nailer, or you can screw it in position. It's quite a product that we use all the time, like locally in Victoria. If you've been to the NGV gardens in the last couple of weeks, it's called the Home Truth by Breathe. There's a big facility open till the end of April, which is the sort of the virtual background that behind me. So it's our exposed internal lining all up in the NGV gardens at the moment. Next slide. And we also use customer waste. So this is where we do a lot of corporate clients where we actually use their waste packaging, from board reports to marketing materials, because ultimately we're mixing our recipes are based on mixing the right amount of packaging fiber with soft plastics to make our board. So it's a composite board, not dissimilar to a particle or a strand board, but we're using recycled packaging material rather than wood fiber. So our wood fiber is the packaging fiber. Next slide. Woolworths are probably one of our biggest clients. We're in their specification. We do about 80 store refurbishments a year. It's an ongoing, and for them we do all the low height walls around the checkouts, feature areas around their milk fridges, back of house, internal linings, and we can actually create their own color. So we've actually created basically like coloring paint. We can color the film to, and in this case, this is the emerald green, which is custom for them. Next slide. Multi-use panels, which is actually, that photo is the lead group on the Northeast Link in Victoria. So I think there's a couple of kilometers already up. This one's got an extra, more like about 4-year life, because it's got a UV coating both sides. The bottom left-hand photo is in Perth, so that's in a big shopping centre there. So they're using it for like retail, sort of, I guess, temporary hoardings. The bottom right-hand corner is, yeah, same application inside. Next slide. This is in New Zealand. This is the same thing, more of a natural finish, where you can see the composition of all the packaging that's gone into it. A cool little sign telling you that there's 7,350 kgs of packaging waste has been collected by the community that's actually in those walls. That will be up for a couple of years and then taken back to us for reprocessing. Next slide. Better brace, which we talked about. So this is external bracing, more sort of residential and sort of low-level commercial. It's rated to extra high wind zone. I think it's 6 kilonewton per meter bracing capacity. Next slide. Ceiling tiles. So this is sort of commercial applications from that basically will fit the regular grid patterns from the 595 by 1195 through to the square. They've got a 30 decibels STC rating. Next slide. This is in our commercial retail fit out. So this is where you may not want to look. You want the benefits of SaveBOARD, the circularity, but you want it to look like a normal product with a high pressure laminate, or you can have sort of more the exposed surface. So yeah, this is the only product in the market that's a fully circular joinery product. Everything else like MDF and particle board are basically ultimately landfill or waste of energy at end of life. Next slide. This is our closest we've got to a plaster board. So it's got a paper facing with tapered edges. It performs really well, although it's not a perfect surface finish. It's not flat like plasterboard. It's sort of dimpled, like I call it orange peel effect. So if you want it perfectly flat, you have to do a level 5 skim coat. Otherwise, you just enjoy the texture of the product and don't plaster it and just paint it. Next slide. Product certifications and eco labels. So all our products are GECA certified. We've got Declare, meaning that we've got no red list products in our board, so that can be used right up to Living Building Challenge, which is like the sort of the peak of sustainable design. And we've got 5 EPDs that are due out in the next week, basically, and they're a great story. Next slide. So carbon savings. So these are our EPD numbers that'll be issued shortly. Is that including biogenic, they're all negative. And how do we get negative numbers? Because our product contains anywhere between 60% and 90% wood fiber from the packaging. So and because it's a higher density, you get more carbon per square meter. So if you think of, say, an untreated plywood, it's about -7. And like CLT timber is about a similar amount. So we can pack more carbon per square meter than traditional wood products. Next page. Why SaveBOARD and what do we want? Look, the key to a circular economy is pull through demand. So the more we sell, the more waste we divert, the greater the impact. We're not a startup. We're a real company. We've spent the money on certifications and compliance and testing. Our products are being used today, like in the Northeast Link right through to the NGV, through to Woolworths. Every KFC in Australia will have SaveBOARD throughout their interiors. You know, we've even been awarded a $1 million grant by the Sustainability of Victoria to build a plant in Victoria. The key for us is that, you know, so we aren't another red cycle, is that we need more demand to underpin the new investments. So I guess the key for us is that, you know, Victoria needs to increase their use of SaveBOARD. Otherwise, we'll have to not invest in Victoria and we won't be building a new plant. So we've got 5 months to make a decision. Yeah, we've got growing demand in Victoria, but not enough to actually underpin a new plant. So right now, I guess we want Victorians to sort of say, hey, we'll use your product, because then you can have your own plant in Victoria to solve your problems. And that's me.
Thanks, Paul, for a very clear ask. Open to the panel. I think Ben might go in reverse this time.
Thanks. Thanks, Paul. Interesting presentation there. A couple of questions. I was wondering what you thought the strongest or best application for this would be in transport infrastructure. I know you showed it for a little bit in kind of construction or as cladding material or as a surface finish. And I'll prompt a little bit to say, does the material have a property that might enable it to be used in things like formwork? You know, is it stiff enough and temperature or exposure resistant? And noting that you mentioned, I think, a 4-year life for one product. What is the typical kind of design life for some of these products you've mentioned?
So all of the products have a 15-year warranty and a 50-year design life, except for the multi-use panel when it's used outside. So basically the UV gets it eventually and degrades it. So like our internal linings, you put it up, you keep water away from it, like with any product, you know, it'll last for, you know, for the 50-year life of the typical building. So so in terms of that commercial space, I guess the things like the multi-use, both as like obviously as a temporary protection during construction. So we've done all the impact testing in Australia that was certified as a temporary hoarding. They literally have this pendulum that smashes into it and they fire a nail gun and it, you know, exceeds all the standards. In the actual build, the Woolworths use our multi-use panel in all their interiors. And why they do that is because they want the post-consumer story, because it contains their recycled plastics and the post-consumer cartons. It's high performing, like it's bulletproof. You could literally take a sledgehammer to it. So so it performs really well. You know, I don't know how much you use ceiling tiles, because that's obviously a commercial application for, and then partition walls, you know, like the feature, like the exposed, or you know, they're probably the main sort of commercial applications. You know, the other, and maybe the better joinery where you've got, say, counters or things that, you know, there's obviously going to be desks, and, you know, you've got the product that looks like a HPL, but that has the circular and end of life recycling options that others don't.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ben. Stephen.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, look, I had a couple of questions. One is on the roof board variant, whether you've done advanced weathering testing. And the second one was on, well, I guess in general, I just saw you flashed up in the paper-faced one. It was in fire group 3.
Yes.
But how have they been tested for fire behaviour, and how does that compare to alternatives they're seeking to replace? You know, for example, plasterboard is fairly inert and, you know, behaves fairly, you know, has fire insulating properties up to a point, as fire-rated plasterboards.
Yeah.
But plastics in wall or roof sheeting may release more toxic gases in a fire. So I'm just wondering how the fire testing has gone. It's a bit of a two-parter. Yeah, the advanced weathering on the roof board, and the fire properties, fire behaviours for any of them?
So if I start with the roof board, it's not the weather layer. It's underneath like a flexible membrane, or so it's been used extensively in the US for about 16 years. So the roof of the Tesla Gigafactory in Sparks, Nevada is a warm roof system, and SaveBOARD is the substrate underneath the PIR. And then they've got a can't remember the membrane they've used. So it's been tested with all the torch on or glued on membranes. So in terms of going back into that fire testing, so we've tested in Australia with Ignis Labs in New South Wales. They've done all our fire testing. The key thing is that proportionally we have a similar amount of soft plastics as the timber products have as glues and adhesives. So most of the glues and plywood and OSB is a urea formaldehyde based glue. Our soft plastics is a low density polyethylene. And if you actually look at the fire performance and the gases released when either of those are ignited, low density polyethylene contains less noxious gases than urea formaldehyde. So it's actually on a relative terms, it's a safer thing to inhale than say a plywood based product. Either of them, you don't want to inhale them because you're taking in nitrous oxides, but yeah, from a relative perspective, it's a better outcome than burning other wood-based products with glue.
Thank you.
And
so Paul, does it have, just going on from the fire, I also had some fire questions. So does it have a bell rating?
Yes. We've done all the testing from obviously to get the group number and the thermal heat release curves and all the rest. So look, we are a group 3, so there is limitations, like plasterboard is a group 2S.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have limitations of where it can be used. So like with Woolworths, obviously they're in shopping malls and what have you. In a lot of applications, they're having to put like a fire-rated plasterboard as a substrate underneath SaveBOARD. So they're having SaveBOARD as the feature, but also the high impact, because obviously plasterboard you could put a supermarket trolley through it, whereas our board will literally is super bulletproof in relative terms. So they design around it by having a fire rated plasterboard where they need it.
Mm-hmm. In our, I'm very aware of it on the north section of our project, Northeast Link, and I think it really actually looks great for a temporary hoarding. It looks actually quite smart, really, in the landscape there at the moment. I'm thinking about future possible applications. We are playing with, recycled plastic noise walls on some of the project, and whether you could get the design life of this product up to having, it's sustainable, 50-year life, and whether there'd be any opportunities for noise amelioration with absorption of noise, because we're getting to the stage where we're building very high noise walls, which we'd like to minimize that. And we know from other work we've done across the network that absorptive walls can help with that.
Yeah, look, ultimately the thing that gets us is UV. So it's keeping the best performing hoarding we have is actually a paper face product that we paint, because that prevents the UV getting to the surface, whereas the one on like the Northeast Link, it looks awesome, it's beautiful, but there's no secondary coating. So you get the beauty and you can see the recycled texture in it, but there is no sort of paint over the top of it. Whereas if you were to paint it, which makes it boring, but then you get the life out of it. So yeah, that's the.
So it could be painted and you'd get the life, would you?
We haven't tested the 50 years, but we've done accelerated aging, and we've got, on the sort of closer to 10-year mark. But
yeah.
And
I've just got one other question. How does it go with releasing any sort of microplastics into the environment?
So, like anything, like any plastic product, if it wears, you release. So, the cars in your tyres releases 50% of the world's microplastics because you wear them on the road. So, but you get the same effect as when like plywood delaminates, you've effectively released the glues into the environment. So on our website, we basically say it's signs of where you should either encapsulate by painting or you need to replace. So that's the...
Yeah, and so I was really interested also to see that you can manipulate the colour, because that, from an urban design perspective, is another, something else that we're obviously challenged with often.
Yeah, look, we can make it any colour you like. So like the NGV behind us, I'd recommend people to go and have a look. It's in a sort of a blue, but then right through the Woolworths they want their colour, so we've applied basically a recycled film that we've coloured to it, so then it gives a consistent look for them.
Oh, great. Thank you, Paul.
Wonderful. Thanks, Paul. And we're running about 5 minutes behind schedule, so I'll try to catch up. But Paul, thank you. I'd love to see a plant open up in Victoria. So call out again to anyone actually even in the audience. You've come along here today because we absolutely believe you might be dialing in from local councils, interstate departments, or even commercial projects, or you're from a consultancy. Please feel free to reach out to any of the presenters here today. We'll be sharing the presentations because I'd love to see a SaveBOARD plant open up here in Victoria. So thanks, Paul. Moving on to Rachel at Paintback, and Rachel, it sounds like maybe you should have a chat to Paul. Maybe you can come up with new paint that provides some UV protection for SaveBOARD. But anyway, I won't digress. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Doi. I really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for allowing us to spruik our brand new product this morning. So we've developed a new paint made from unwanted paint. Next slide, please, Doi. So Paintback is a product stewardship scheme. It was established in 2016. Essentially, it stemmed from the major paint companies in Australia identifying that end-of-life paint and end-of-life paint packaging didn't have a good pathway for recycling and reuse in Australia. So they formed Paintback, and essentially we're supported by a levy, which is 15 cents for every litre of paint sold in eligible architectural and decorative paint. Next slide, please. So research and development Paintback is really at the heart of what we do. We try to find new higher order uses for the paint that we collect through the scheme, which includes water-based paint and solvent-based paint, but also the packaging in which that paint comes in. We've got a myriad of fabulous research partners, both industry, research institutes, CRCs, and industry-to-industry relationships as well. Our current research portfolio includes baser blocks, road-based stabilizer, dust suppressant, light-weighted roof tiles, geopolymer concrete and high SEM concrete, and the use of paint to replace some virgin admixtures in concrete. We are always looking for new industry partnerships for research. We've got a very strong research team at Paintback. So if you've got a problem that you think paint could potentially solve, please get in touch by scanning the QR code on the bottom left of your screen. Next slide, please, Doi. So Paintback collects unwanted paint and packaging from 169 sites across Australia. This is typically your local transfer station, tip or resource recovery centre. Since the beginning of the scheme, we have collected almost 60 million kilograms. So that's actually quite a lot of paint and packaging that's come through. Paint's quite an interesting material in that it's really difficult at the end of a trade project or a DIY project to actually use up that little 5 to 10% left remaining in the can. It's also really good material in terms of properties and quite flexible through a range of different applications. We then treat and manufacture a range of products using the recycled feedstock at our Victorian plant, including grayscale paint, which I'll deep dive into a bit later, concrete additives, primer-based ingredients, so trying to substitute some base formulations in primers with water-based paint, and also adhesives for outdoor applications. Paint's a very good sticky material to try and glue things together where required. The diagram on the right essentially details, oh, sorry, too fast. The journey. So we collect the paint at the transfer stations, we segregate and sort it by type. It then goes through a specialized manufacturing process to manufacture a myriad of products, but I'll focus on our paint-back grayscale paint for this presentation. And then it's essentially ready to use. Next slide, please. It's really good for the environment, and we've actually been doing quite a number of active trials on different substrate surfaces and exposures. It's really good for covering unsightly graffiti. It's really good for coverage on concrete, steel and timber infrastructure. It's great for adding a refresh coat and improving the local amenity. Great for quick coverage, so if you need to just cover a quick tag or an offensive picture, it's really good to quickly whip out and apply with a roller. And it's really great for covering difficult to reach places such as underpasses. Next slide, please. There's a stack of benefits, but it is circular. So we are using the paint that we collect through the scheme back into paint. So it doesn't get more circular than that. It essentially prevents it from ending up in landfill or other nefarious places like down the drain or down waterways. It's locally made, so we manufacture all the collected paint here in Victoria. It goes on thick, so our trials have shown that where 2 to 3 coats may have been required with virgin paint, only a single coat is required. It dries quickly as well. It's competitively priced, so essentially it's pinned to the virgin price of paint, so we're not really attracting a recycled or sustainability premium to this product. And there's a huge value to the community. It tells a really good narrative with community members contributing to local projects and covering graffiti and improving local amenity. It also has lower carbon emissions, so the reduction in virgin material use and local supply reduces embodied carbon. So approximately 1 litre of paint saves 0.15 kilograms of CO2 equivalent. Early in November, we partnered with the City of Melbourne, who has a bit of a graffiti issue, and we thought our paint would help tackle that. So we've done a number of trials in conjunction with City of Melbourne's contractor, and more recently, we covered this large apartment building and car park located on Flinders Street in the CBD. This is quite a big building. It's a big job. And approximately 600 meters squared was successfully covered quite swiftly. Next slide, please. We covered all faces, so the front face, which can be seen between Southern Cross and Flinders Street Station, but also the sides. So here's some before, during and after pictures just to give you a bit of an idea of the scale. So scissor lifts were used, abseilers were required. It was by no means a small job and undertaking. Next slide, please, Doi. This was a very successful trial. It also highlighted that there's quite a few additional benefits. So in terms of this large apartment complex, to undertake this work, the car park needed to be blocked off to allow for plant, abseilers and scissor lifts. Essentially only 1 layer of our paint was required, and anecdotally 2 to 3 coats may have been required for a job like this using their virgin paint. So therefore public disruption was minimized. We were able to kind of fly in and fly out quite quickly, achieve really good coverage. And as you can see between the left and right photo, the color matching was great. You can't even tell that graffiti was over there in the first place. It also reduces the risk in application by minimizing the time for risky at heights work and abseiling. Next slide, please, Doi. So our paintback grayscale paint is available now. We do have multiple options in terms of pack sizes, so from 10 litres up to 1,000 litres, depending on how large the job and project is. It can be used for interior and exterior applications. We've also performed extensive accelerated weather testing, so we can confirm that it adheres to all common substrates for a very long period of time and performs just as well, if not better, with virgin paint. We're also quite fortunate to be able to tap into our member paint company's R&D. So this paint went through a similar study to a new formulation, and they confirmed that it performs really well. It can be applied with a brush and a roller, and essentially it's really easy to apply thick. Next slide, please. I just wanted to take some time to highlight some upcoming projects and products. So we're also working very closely with the Smartcrete CRC and Swinburne University to use paint as an additive in concrete. This has multiple pronged benefits. So it reduces the cementitious material required and therefore the embodied carbon. Concrete's one of the, I think, most used materials by projects and people. So essentially it just follows water in terms of material use. It also has some quite interesting early performance aspects. So corrosion resistance is something that water-based paint really benefits in concrete, and durability and flexural strength. Next slide, please, Doi. So given the promising lab trial results, we believe that our concrete additive could improve concrete applications in the following: sewage infrastructure and pipes, footpaths and slabs, marine concrete because it does exhibit quite high corrosion resistance, and high SEM concrete. So it is my understanding that the concrete industry is trying to shift into using a high percentage of supplementary cementitious materials to lower the embodied carbon. Unfortunately, that presents its own challenges such as pumpability, the rheology of the material, and strength formation. But what we've discovered is our paint actually really helps counteract those negative aspects of SEM. We're working with committed industry partners at the moment to validate the above applications. However, we're always interested in hearing from interested industry partners for wider use. Next slide, please. Great. We love to have a chat. Scan the QR code, or my email details are in the bottom left corner if anything here piques your interest, or if you'd like to ask any questions or find out more, please do get in touch.
Thanks, Rachel. I'll open this one to Anne first.
Thank you. Really interesting, Rachel. Just wondering, the color variation, can you tint it up to any colors, or only darker shades from the original mix?
Yeah, it's really a good question, and there's a reason why it's grey. It's a blend of all our recycled colours.
Yeah.
Essentially, when you put it through the sausage machine, you get a greige, or we're calling it grayscale. Our trial with City of Melbourne, they actually tint down. It's really hard to tint up and make something whiter. It's very easy to add a dash of olive or a dark navy to kind of bring it down and color match surfaces. They're actually quite good at color matching. They can actually look at a wall and go, I know exactly what this paint needs to sort of match it. However, we wouldn't be tackling Flinders Street Station anytime soon. I think that's quite a bespoke color to achieve.
Yeah, for example, across our network, and certainly, things have changed over the years, but we try to specify for repainting certain colours, but you could probably work to a certain grey. I'm getting the indication.
Yeah, we definitely can. And I guess the benefit of us having so much paint coming through our facility is we can sort of pick and mix and quarantine if certain colours are required, if we do have that specification. So it is achievable. Obviously, it's less achievable to get the brightest white or a whisper white. But we can essentially triage the incoming and outbound paint and colour match according to a project's needs.
Thank you. The other question I have is when you're saying about an additive to concrete, you talk, we use, we're having to use quite a bit of shotcrete on the network these days. It's we're trying to get a more architectural finish to some of our shotcrete, and we have put some paint in some shotcrete instead of oxide in a couple of projects. But do you think that's a successful outcome?
I think so. I think, look, I'm a chemical engineer, not a civil engineer, so my view on shotcrete is probably a bit limited, but my understanding is the finishing has to do with the setting time and the rheology of it. If it ends up a bit lumpy, it's because it's not flowing when it's delivered on site. We're looking at things that are similar, like 3D printed concrete at the moment, kind of improve the delivery of that concrete and make sure it's homogeneous and easy to work with in situ. So yes, I do believe paint actually really offers some additional benefits for shotcrete or 3D printed concrete or just your standard concrete.
And from an economic perspective, would it be a cheaper additive than traditional oxides?
We can look at that because I guess where the co-benefits sort of sit is we also displace some of the other materials in the mix that can be quite costly. So whilst we may not be achieving a 1-for-1 replacement of a standard admixture, we are displacing, cementitious material to get the same sort of cubic meter coverage and performance and durability.
Right. I have one more question. Can it not be sprayed? You can't spray it on?
We haven't yet. So we've done some trials with spray. It's sprayed on okay, but for guaranteed performance, just because the particulate size distribution, roller and brush is best at the moment.
Sure.
In our discussions with City of Melbourne, they said 90% of their work orders are done by rolling anyway, so we can look at that if there is a need.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
And any other panelists?
Just very interested in this product. I think it when hearing you talk about it, there's a lot that would be attractive to transport infrastructure use. I guess I was going to just ask about your broad interface or awareness of some of the technical specifications we work towards. Have you had a look at how it compares to things like the protective coatings for concrete or steel or anything like that?
Yeah, we've looked at alignment with the APAS standards, which are the CSIRO endorsed standards that larger paint manufacturers adhere to and are audited to. But if there is a specific standard or you have in mind, Ben, feel free to flick it through and we can do the testing with that. Similar
to some of the previous products, the Austroads technical specifications are definitely the ones I'd start with. Victoria is essentially in a process of adopting the Austroads specifications as their primary document. And I guess the good news is the main color we use is called VicRoads Grey. And I imagine you can be quite close to that with your grayscale. And I mean, it looks like you've already had a fair bit of application in kind of transport or transport adjacent infrastructures. I think we could answer a lot of questions in terms of performance. I was actually really interested in that last bit around the use in concrete. We have quite a bit of change in that area at the moment around things like calcined clay in concrete or ultra high performance concrete. So I think you picked a good time to kind of enter the mix, and certainly it'd be really good if some of the flexural strength improvements could potentially be used to address some of the concerns we have around things like surface cracking and stuff like that. So really interested in what you've uncovered there.
Great, thank you, Ben. And just to flag, we do have EPA approval in Vic for use in concrete, so that's not going to be the hurdle we have to jump across, thankfully.
Do you know if it's been used in any registered mixes for?
It has. We do have our concrete out in the wild, and we are pursuing some more field trials for different mix designs, particularly high SCM mixes early next year. So yeah, our additive in concrete is out in the wild in Victoria.
Thanks.
If I can follow that same line of questioning, Rachel, it'd be great to have a report back maybe in February to our Vita-wide low carbon concrete working group,
Mhm.
where we discuss and debate and encourage and cross-share a lot of information. And I noticed in the presentation you also talked about geopolymer application. So maybe not clogging that up now, but to have a report back on both the geopolymer and the other ones, including the approved mixed designs, back to the low carbon concrete working group, which ecologiQ facilitates. So get on the agenda for that, and that gets you across all the major projects. I was just intrigued in comments about the swifter drying time, performs better, less coats needed. Is that some particular byproduct of the recycling process? Because otherwise, why wouldn't you just make your normal paint products to have one coat rather than two or three and dry swifter? And like, what's the secret sauce aspect that your recycling process does that you wouldn't just normally do?
That's a really interesting question, and I think it's by virtue that our paint essentially is a mix of very high grade paint and low grade paint, whereas for a lot of external applications, it's probably mid to low. So we actually probably receive quite high quality paint for its purpose through the scheme. The other thing is our paint evaporation is a naturally occurring phenomena, so it's probably higher in solids content for some applications. Therefore, you get that quicker coverage and less water needs to evaporate from the site. So it's a bit of a interesting one. We've produced quite a few batches. We did have a pilot plant for a long time before pursuing a larger scale plant, and every batch we essentially tested exhibited the same property, so we're highly confident that that's the case.
So that would mean that in terms of quality control to ensure the same outcomes, you'll need to monitor what kinds of paints are going into the recycling process, lest say the trend of what gets recycled ends up with more of the lower quality, lower density ones over time. Then your sort of vaunted better properties might drop off if you don't ensure that mix.
You're 100% right, and we produce batches that are 10,000 litres at a time, so it's not small batch, so therefore it does kind of even out if there is a bit of more of this and a bit less of the higher grade paint. We do perform QA and QC inbound and outbound just to make sure it's fit for purpose for all of our applications. So for example, if say the properties don't lend themselves for external paint, that doesn't mean that it sort of precludes it from being used in concrete. So we have quite a few diverse end markets for that reason.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, Rachel, great product, and I think you've really piqued people's interest also with the potential concrete application. So we'll follow up on some of those actions there. Rachel, thank you for your presentation. If you want to hop into the Q&A, I think there's a few questions there for you. Audience, don't leave us just yet. I'll now hand over to Lily Rose Palmer, who's going to catch up with Jackson Ellis from Cacti Conserve and carry us through to close. Lily Rose, over to you.
Thanks, Doi. Hey, everyone. I'm Lily Rose. As Doi mentioned, I'm here with Jackson Ellis, who is the founder of Cacti Conserve for our Where Are They Now segment. And this is basically just a bit of an opportunity for us to check in with some players who've pitched previously at a showcase, see what their major milestones have been, and kind of get a bit of a snapshot of where they are now. So next slide, please, Doi. So Jackson, since presenting at the Innovation Showcase, what have been the key milestones or projects for Cacti Conserve?
Thanks, Lily Rose, and good afternoon, everybody. We have made a few key milestones on various projects and across the country as well, which I'll just speak to. We have, for one, made a partnership with the Southern Program Alliance, another local social enterprise called Assembled Threads, and Stratex to bring to market a 100% recycled silk sock. And that collaboration was also the finalist for a Social Traders Game Changers Award for a Partnership of the Year earlier this year. Alongside of that, we've been able to establish a supply of branded barricade tapes to replace virgin plastic barricade tapes for Yarra Valley Water, which they're now using on a lot of their assets across the northeast of Melbourne. Further to that, we've been able to supply locally made and recycled materials, site safety products, plus sediment control products to the Northeast Link project. And we've been supplying eco safety bunting and eco safety posts to regional rail project revival and level crossing removal projects. And in addition, I'd just like to mention that some of our eco site safety posts, which are made from 100% recycled soft plastics, have been sought by Parks Victoria and New South Wales national parks agencies for habitat protection for coastal and marine bird nesting sites because of their properties around not rusting out in those marine conditions.
Oh, awesome. Sounds like some really worthwhile and amazing opportunities. Doi, if you don't mind flicking to the next slide, we actually have some great pictures of some of those projects and some of those products. Super exciting to hear about the said sock, because the PVC banner mesh is a little bit of a bugbear of mine. So it's great to see some reuse opportunities for some of that mesh. So reflecting on you know on the pitch and what's happened since pitching, was there a piece of advice or feedback from the panelists that really helped to shape your decision making or even help build awareness within the industry?
Yeah, there've been some key pieces of advice and feedback, and it's probably a part of the diversity of feedbacks as well, and understanding the points of focus for different projects and clients has been key. Some projects are most concerned about the sustainability metrics of the products we produce. Others are more focused on the affordability, and some are looking at concerns around capacity and service area coverage. And through this, we've been able, this has helped us to guide our product range. What's possible isn't always viable, and our marketing approach and messaging and offerings have been refined to meet clients' needs on their terms. And this is key to us being able to maintain some high demand contracts.
Awesome. Yeah, I think it's such a great takeaway, especially when going through procurement. Every project is different and what they're looking for is different, and it can be really challenging to present your information in the way that's best for the project. So that's really great to hear. I'm glad that the feedback was helpful in that way. Touching on, you know, the challenges of procurement and making sure you're presenting yourself in the right way for the projects. Have you experienced any challenges with industry engagement?
Yeah, so probably the one of the main challenges that we've been facing throughout is around a price barrier created by procurement habits founded on cheap virgin plastic imports, specifically the safety products. This continues to be one of our major challenges in reaching the market. Behaviour change takes time and trust, but the advocacy of industry groups and events like ecologiQ's conferences and showcases like this one are bringing sustainability and the use of recycled materials off the bench and onto the playing field. This improves both rapport with and capacity of our local recycled materials sector, building the trust leading to behaviour change necessary for building green infrastructure. And I think that we've been able to really meet a lot of our customers' needs, both in quality, sustainability metrics, and in price point, by communicating the benefits. And definitely the work of ecologiQ has helped us being able to communicate some of those benefits.
Yeah, that's such an excellent point. You know, behavior change is a challenge I think that everybody experiences. It's very difficult. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that, you know, engaging with ecologiQ has kind of helped with some of that and making connections. What would you say have been some of the other benefits of engaging with the ecologiQ program?
The connections that we've made through ecologiQ programs has certainly been one of the biggest takeaways. Through the ecologiQ events Cacti Conserve has been engaged with, we've been able to build relationships leading to procurement contracts on a number of big build sites, also with councils and utility asset providers. We've discovered local suppliers of materials and products and formed collaborations with other suppliers of recycled material goods. These connections have allowed us to grow our market reach and become part of a community of businesses leading towards more sustainable infrastructure. And I think probably too that the connections that we have in this space strengthen the local industry, but they also show that we are a united front of businesses working to improve sustainability in the built environment, and not just individual players all tackling this at their own rate.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I think you touched on there that like connecting through these forums and building those connections can really bring about a lot of change, and you can kind of see a lot of change in the industry through engaging with different programs like the ecologiQ programs. So now a bit of a blue sky question for you. What would you like to see within industry in the next 5 years?
I would really like to see a greater take-up of stewardship of materials and products. Full product lifecycle responsibility from design and inputs to end-of-life capture would be a standard practice, with procurement teams and sustainability teams working together to reduce project waste at the procurement stage. These would assist in factoring in pricing of waste collection and processing of materials at end of life, which I think is really important if we're going to have a robust recycling sector.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially with, you know, a lot of the very targets that we have for decarbonisation and net zero, you know, whole consideration of life cycle is more important now than ever. So I think it's a great New Year's resolution for everybody in industry to have. That's it from me. Thank you so much, Jackson, for your time. It's been so awesome to see Cacti Conserve's progress and some of your key milestones. Hopefully you all enjoyed that. So I'll pass back over on to Doi to close out the session.
Thanks, Jackson, and thanks, Lily Rose. I was just curious, Jackson, since you've got the floor, if our panelists had any questions or queries for Jackson, or any further advice or opportunities. Just keeping conversation open. Anne.
I was just thinking, you know, the parameters to competing against cheaper imports. I mean, that's sort of a challenge we face on projects all over the place. What do you think we can do to help that from a government and projects perspective?
It'd be lovely to see the unseen costs incorporated in budgets. So the costs of procuring overseas means that we're then supporting labour markets that aren't local labour markets. We're then not supporting local recycling industry, which needs our support and our help to get off the ground and solve a lot of the big problems. And if there is some way to build that into budgeting and put a dollar value on those things, I think that would make locally made recycled material products look far more competitive.
Yeah, great idea.
Thank you. Ben, did you have a question or?
I must admit I had a similar question to Anne, so I think asked and answered. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Well, look. Sorry, Stephen.
No, just to say I enjoyed what you were presenting there, Jackson. I didn't have actually any additional questions. It was just good to see the progress, essentially. So let's see more of it.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you. I found out recently, I think the landfill levies in New South Wales will be going up. I'm not sure if that's something that I've heard, and it wouldn't surprise me if other states and territories follow. So I think the tide is moving in our favour. So because the cost of landfilling is going to become much more expensive, so I'm sure that will be factored in the procurement at the very least. But I do think that's a bit of a stick approach. I do prefer the carrot wherever we can. So let's hope that our projects and our contracts start factoring in these other hidden costs. And with the mandatory reporting for carbon coming in as well, and decarbonisation strategy that was announced, I do think the tide really is in our favour. Which brings us to the end of today. I'd like to take a moment to thank our panelists and our presenters again, so to taking the time out to, one, tell us about their wonderful new innovations, but secondly, to also provide some feedback. And I can tell that from today's session, I think our presenters definitely see some new opportunities and some areas to pursue. From here, if you're not already subscribed, please join us on our Knowledge Hub. So ecologiQ has a treasure trove of resources, case studies that they share the best practices, including reference guides about what's happening in our sector with recycled materials. So all these products here today will find its way onto our Knowledge Hub Innovation Register. So we do have a register there where I think to date there's over 60 different products that are in sort of development right through to full approval. So for example, Jackson, your recycled silt sock there, which is that partnership with Stratix, that is something that is available and ready to go to purchase off the shelf. I thank you again for taking the time to join us. Reach out to us at ecologiq@roadprojects.vic.gov.au. I know that those of you dialing out there, you'll have opportunities on your projects too. My final call out is, you've heard the recurring theme. We want to see Victorian made and to keep this in Victoria. So you can be part of that change as well. So please reach out to us. And if you if you have any questions, drop us a line at ecologiq. You can reach out to the team. I'll be sending out a copy of this presentation and recording on YouTube early next week. And if you have a safe festive season, and we look forward to catching up with you in the new year when the showcase resumes. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.